All right, everybody. I'm going to be doing with a Catholic blogger, so just need to connect up with her. So I'm just going to wait here until enough people show up. Got 3 people up on YouTube, 3 people up on Facebook. Okay. Wait, hold on. This is not going to work. Hello, Darian Chrysafis. You guys can write me comments. This is going to be a live stream, so you can ask me whatever you want. Hello, Seth. Yeah, don't worry. There'll be a lot of interesting stuff said here. Hello, Ortho Christos. Hello, Cove Teo. Starting a little earlier than I usually do because I have a scheduled interview here. So a Catholic blogger has asked me to do an interview with her. So I'm going to bring her on in a moment here. And this is going to be just a regular, it's going to be pretty much a regular live stream. You guys can ask me whatever you want, and I'll answer all of your guys' questions. Okay, there she is. Okay, guys, let me know if you guys can hear her well. Hello, hello?
Hi.
Okay.
So I don't have, for some reason on my Mac, I don't have Messenger.
It's fine. It's fine. We can still do voice calls. Okay, so your voice is heard by my audience here on YouTube. I just asked them if your voice is clear enough, and they said yes.
Okay, that's fine.
So you are you're a Catholic blogger, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I for Doppler things, Call to Communion, and Catholic Mom, also others. But
cool. Yeah. Cool. So this is supposed to be an interview, so let's get right to it and ask away all the questions. And then I'll try to answer them as best as I can.
Do you want me to do my intro, or do you want me to just ask you the questions?
You just ask the questions.
A little bit. Okay, cool. All right.
The thing about the intro is that it's written, and so when you read something out, it kind of if you want to introduce yourself, that's fine. But I think the problem with a written introduction is that it can sound kind of mechanical. But if you just want to introduce yourself, I think that's perfectly okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a wife, mom to 7, and I'm writing a book right now with Louise Press. It's due out October 2021. It's called A Child's Biblical History. And I'm writing it with my colleague Diane Reed. She's a local resident of Chattanooga and she's an accomplished artist. And it's going to be an amazing chance to teach our children the Word of God, and we're translating it into Spanish. And so yeah.
Okay. There's kind of an echo I think on your end. I can hear myself twice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't hear it on my end.
Okay, maybe hopefully it'll go away.
Okay. Well,
do you have me on speaker? Do you have me on speaker?
Let me see. Is that better?
Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, it's not as big. It's still there, but it's not as loud.
Okay. Yeah. So is this better?
Let me see. Hold on. Let me hear my voice. It's better. Yeah. Yeah. Better.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to ask you, first of all, what is your opinion on the Catholic Church in terms of the Vatican and Rome at large under the leadership and direction of Pope Francis versus your experience with your diocese and your local parish? Where do you come down in terms of being happy with what you've experienced locally and also abroad?
What I would say to that is, so my experience in my own archdiocese, which is the Archdiocese of San Antonio, is that it actually reflects a lot of the weird things that you hear about coming from the Vatican. So, for example, when you hear about Pope Francis saying, I think we need gay civil unions, like that right there can be seen within the Archdiocese of San Antonio and also the Archdiocese of Austin, which to me is the most are some of the most corrupt dioceses in the world. Like the Diocese of San Antonio, the Diocese of Austin, these are extremely corrupt dioceses. So, for example, I remember there was a priest in San Antonio. He died actually last year from coronavirus. But I remember his name was Monsignor Michael Yarbrough. And this guy, he actually would teach that homosexuality is great, you know. And he would teach that he even boasted about how he had gay congregants and how he refused to tell them or to say from the pulpit that homosexuality is even a sin. And it turned out that years before that, and by before, I mean 2014, years before 2014, when I confronted Yarbrough, which you can see on film, actually, Yarbrough admitted to sexually assaulting a young man by the name of Hector Escalante. And it wasn't in San Antonio, but it was within a diocese in Texas. I believe it was in New Braunfels, if I'm not mistaken. And he asked, and this young man was a little bit slow. He was psychologically vulnerable, and he invited this young man to his office. Young man thought nothing ill was intended here, and he goes into the priest's office, and the priest grabs him by the face and kisses him in the lips like something from Silence of the Lambs. And there was something of a controversy that took place over this. Obviously, there was a scandal, and Monsignor Michael Yarbrough was not a Monsignor at this point. He was just a priest, but he was promoted to the position of Monsignor.
Yeah.
Even though he admitted to a bishop that he had done this, and this was a fact, and it's also open information that Yarbrough was giving donations to a Catholic homosexual organization that openly promotes gay Catholicism, homo heresy, and also promotes abortion. That the church should be accepting of abortion, that the church should be pro-choice. And still, he was never reprimanded for this. There was no penalization, nothing at all. And then also in the Diocese of Austin, there was a priest by the name of Robert L. Kinsel, who was very well connected from what I understood. And he also, Robert L. Kinsel was a canon law judge who was appointed, I'm pretty sure, by either Pope John Paul II or Pope Benedict. And he was very well connected in the Vatican in Italy. He was connected to cardinals, and he was a canon law judge in Texas. And he would teach that homosexuals don't have to go to confession. And he even taught that that two men could do degenerate things to each other, and it's not a sin. As long as they are in a monogamous relationship, it's perfectly okay. And I didn't know this about Kinsel when I first met him. That's the thing. I didn't know this about him. But when I met him, he was very articulate. He was very educated. He knew a lot about church history and theology. And he was the type of guy, he was also, he came across as a traditional Catholic as well. Loved the Latin Mass. He served as a priest in the Maronite Church, in fact. And he claimed to be against the liberalism within the church. I mean, he said all the right things that a traditional Catholic would want to hear. And he said, Ted, I do tours every single year to Italy. So I think you would love to come to Italy. And I said, yeah, that would be great. And one day I gave him a call and I said, what's the agenda? What hotel do you recommend? What airline do we use? I mean, I had no idea what to do. So, and then he says, Theodore, I think we should share a room together. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I think we should share a room together. It would be more economical. And I'm like, oh my God. So I remember telling my father this, and he said, this guy's a predator, 100%. So I began to do research on Kinsel, and I found out that I believe it was in an article published by the Washington Post. It was from the early 2000s, I'm pretty sure. And it reported about how Kinsel wrote an email, I believe an email or a letter, to the authorities in somewhere in Texas. I don't remember exactly where. And it was regarding a priest by the name of Robert Hrdlicka, who was a convicted pedophile who molested children. And Robert Hrdlicka was going to serve time in prison, years in prison. And what Kinsel did was he wrote a letter to the authorities begging them not to put Hrdlicka in prison, but to put him in a Catholic rehabilitation center. So I tried to report all of the things that I knew about Kinsel to the bishop in Austin. And eventually they asked me for evidence. I sent them an entire study that I put together on Kinsel. And they actually called me up the next morning saying, let's do a meeting early tomorrow at like 9 or 10 a.m. And so I go to this meeting, and there are two representatives from the Diocese of Austin, Deacon Ron Walker, and I believe another one named Danny Garcia. And we spoke for about 2.5 hours, and they said, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do about it? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you want me to do about it? You guys are supposed to be telling me what you're going to do about this. And it turned out that I eventually called, a year later, I called up Deacon Ron Walker, and he said, there's absolutely nothing we can do about this guy because he was appointed by the Vatican. So the Vatican would have to deal with this. So basically, when you ask me what's my opinion on the controversies taking place in the Vatican, in light of what happens within my own diocese, I will say that what happens in the Vatican is a reflection of what happens in local dioceses and vice versa as well. So I think that it's extremely corrupt, and it's just a big mess.
Well, I think that I'm going to skip my second question and go to my third because it relates more to what you're talking about. And I'm going to set up this question a little bit because it's going to be about the sexual abuse crisis in general. And I said, do you find that the corruption you've seen in the Catholic Church is mostly related to the sexual abuse crisis and scandal, or is there something sinister at work in terms of greed? And also on a cellular and granular level, how much do you know about the sexual abuse crisis that is really concentrated in the Boston area, and it was. I can say a little bit about it because I have some notes on that, if that's all right with you.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, the movie Spotlight came out in 2015. That really crystallized the sexual abuse crisis and scandal, and it won an Academy Award for Best Picture in 2015. And basically the story is that in 1976, Father John Gogan was arrested. And he was arrested for molesting a boy, but it was covered up in 76. And then in 2001, the Boston Globe discovered that not only had that happened, but Cardinal Bernard Law covered for 90 priests in Boston who were molesting boys. And it turned out communities with sexual scandal, and there were the world. And in that movie, the resolution of the movie is the victims calling into the police and telling the police officers that I too have been molested. I too have been molested. And the police officers just telling them it's not their fault. It's not their fault. And what I would say about that before you answer that question is absolutely Christ is the king and Christ is the conqueror. But abuse is different from a scandalous ongoing trauma, and forgiveness and justice are different in that context because of the woes of the people involved. Their lives were turned upside down. They were turned into crap. And the numbness of the realities of life following that kind of crisis and that kind of experience would probably cause many people to want to leave the Catholic Church for good.
Yes, 100%.
So do you think that it's just this crisis and this scandal, or do you think there are other things that are wrong with the Catholic Church today?
That's a good question. I would say, man, there's so many things I want to say to this. I have a big answer for this. For one, it's a multitude of things, but I think they all interconnect with each other. That's how I see it. So when you look at the Catholic Church, you go into the parish and you see basically an iconoclastic atmosphere. Very little icon. I mean, for the most part, this is what you see, right? Very little icons, or almost no icons. Little to no icons. Terrible music. I mean, really terrible music. There's nothing really of reverence. If you go to the Islamic religion, be it Shia or Sunni, Hindu, Buddhism, if you go to the countries where these religions are the predominant religion, they still keep the traditional way of doing their music, their chants. And in the Western world, we don't have that. It's all just, let's keep making things new. Let's keep making things quote unquote evolve. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of the priests who believe in these sorts of reforms, to use the word liberally, is that they are also people who want to change. They openly want to change the teachings of the church in regards to things like homosexuality. Homosexuality is probably the most polarizing subject on earth. I don't think there is a more polarizing subject. Now, of course, now the vaccine, maybe the vaccine is the number one most polarizing thing. But homosexuality is still definitely up there. And before the vaccine controversy, it was all about the gay, and the gay controversy was the biggest thing, more than abortion. I've noticed more and more people are even becoming pro-life than they are becoming pro or anti-Sodom. But another thing is, you look at these churches and you see these priests with their jello shoulders. You know what I'm talking about? They look flabby.
Yeah.
They look flabby. Their homilies are they have no zeal in them. There's no cause. There's nothing. There's nothing there. It's all just sort of empty. It's the empty shells. And I'll give you an example from my own diocese. I went to this church in San Antonio, and there's a very popular priest in that area. His name is Miguel Moreno, Father Miguel Moreno. And Father Miguel Moreno, he talks like I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. He talks like a homosexual. Talks like a homosexual and moves like a homosexual. And he was, and this happened a couple of years ago. He was supposed to do a sermon on Genesis 19. That was the reading of the day was Genesis 19, which was the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis 19 is the chapter where the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is recounted. And instead of getting into what the essence of the story is, he starts talking about how the story is a warning against hospitality. Now, get this. He begins his homily by talking about how amazing brisket is and how he loves it when people cook him barbecue brisket. Okay. And he, again, this is what I mean by flabby. Starts talking about brisket and how he loves it when people serve him brisket, and how the story in Genesis 19 is a warning against people not being hospitable. Doesn't get into the fact that the whole city wanted to rape two angels. Doesn't get into any of that. Like the whole city, not just the whole city, multiple cities. Because it was Sodom, but there was also the city of Gomorrah, and there was all the little cities around it. The Bible tells us there were multiple cities here, a cluster of cities.
He's just telling you what he wants you to serve him when he comes to your house.
Exactly. God forbid, I wouldn't want him in my house, but may have to call the police. But he starts going off about this, and then I realized, wait a second, that's a gay argument. Because the gay theologian, the people who push this homo heresy or sodomite theology, they always interpret Genesis 19 as being a warning against inhospitality. So he was using an argument that LGBTQ theologians use. He wasn't using the orthodox interpretation that you could read from perusing through Augustine, for example. And Augustine talks about Sodom and Gomorrah, and he says that it's a warning that such evils deserve punishment. Or even right from the New Testament, St. Jude in his epistle, he says that the story of Sodom and Gomorrah was given to us as a warning, not as some kind of, and he describes the sins of Sodom as going after strange flesh. Not inhospitality, nothing about brisket flesh, strange flesh, okay? But no mention of that whatsoever. Not one mention of that. And it was just, but you see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's all interconnected. The whole thing is interconnected. The flabbiness, the weak homilies, the absence of zeal, the absence of beauty, or actually the outright rejection of beauty, and the toleration or the sort of pushing for toleration of Sodom. It's all interconnected. Now, with that said, they are priests who come in the shape, or they come in the face of traditionalism that will also push Sodom. And I've seen this. Robert L. Kinsel was an example of that. He was a traditionalist priest, believed in traditionalism, was against the Novus Ordo. He was against the sort of modernist interpretations within Catholicism. And he said all the right things that a traditionalist Catholic, sort of a church militant type Catholic, would want to hear. I also saw this when I went to Italy. Catholicism in Europe can be very different in the way that it's presented. So in America, Catholicism it's for one thing, it's a minority religion, as opposed to things like something like non-denominational Christianity. But in America, Catholicism is more, I don't know, it's almost like it's secondary to being American in a way. But in European countries that are traditionally Catholic, it's a part of the society. Like, it's everywhere. You go to Italy, Poland, you go to Spain, Catholicism is just all over the place. So I guess when people want to push certain things that aren't orthodox, they have to do it in a more sneaky way. And so when I went to Italy, I noticed going to this church, it was like the music was beautiful, the chant was beautiful. I mean, it was amazing. It was unlike anything I've heard in the United States, unlike anything that I've seen in the United States. But when I began to talk with these nuns or when these monks, they were actually very almost liberal in their interpretations and their beliefs on things. So we have to be careful. I believe, yes, all of the weird things that we see in the Catholic Church today are all interconnected, I believe. But at the same time, they are people who push those very things with the mask of tradition. So we have to be careful on with that. And I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like you were saying, where the priest says all the things that a traddie would want to hear. I think that there are a lot of views within the Catholic Church about government and handouts and that kind of thing. And that would be my next question is, you didn't attend college. You said in your Ask Me Anything just recently, but it seems like you have gotten a great education. I don't know if you're homeschooled or the guidance of your dad is very obvious in your intellectual training. So I was thinking about the difference between socialism, Marxism, and communism. Socialism is opposed to Marxism in many ways. Marxism is a cult of personality, and many have gone down in flames to preserve the image of one man. Mm-hmm. Communism has its roots in atheism and is a bigger movement unto its own. In light of this, many times I've heard you criticize the efforts in the Biden administration to preserve the tenets of protecting the poor, or even homosexuality, those who are in a situation perhaps through no fault, but they are struggling in a situation. Mm-hmm. So in terms of that, is socialism always bad?
I mean, socialism is always bad. So when we think of socialism, we're thinking about when we think of socialism, we usually think of like Marx, right? That's always bad. Yes, I would definitely say Marxism is always bad. The idea of government helping the poor or helping people who really need it, I don't really see that as something that's bad. If you want to call it socialism, okay, fine. But the U.S. government has been doing this for a long time. Helping mm-hmm. single mothers, for example, helping people who are unemployed, helping people who are even just really down in the ditches. Now, does that mean that I believe that these people should always get government assistance? No, but I think that government assistance can be very helpful in getting people up from the ground and get their lives back together. So in that aspect, I don't think that's wrong. I mean, and there are many, I think, Republicans who would agree with that. But this idea of, for example, and they are these crazy lefties push this on the internet. The idea that a lot of these people have of, for example, giving the means of production to the workers, I think that's crazy. I think the idea of, for example, taking a business and saying, okay, to hell with the CEO and giving all the power to the workers and having the workers mm-hmm. rule the entire company like a democracy. I think that's, I mean, anyone who has ever worked with employees, I think would know that that's just, that's suicide for your whole business.
Right. Causing inflation and
it's just crazy.
Giving handouts.
Yeah. And then also the idea of like, for example, giving, I mean, what's his face? That guy, Andrew Yang, he talked about giving each American $1,000 for every month. I mean, that's too much. Every American, most Americans work. Most Americans are able-bodied. But I think that's crazy, but but at the same time, we need to have a balance. Does that mean we get rid of all government assistance? No, I think in some cases, people definitely need it. In most cases, I don't think they need it. But in some cases they do. We have to be balanced.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So without getting too personal, have you seen your own faith tested and found secure in the midst of the trials of your life? And what are some examples of this?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I could bring up when I was in public education and when I was arguing with crazy liberal teachers in the Bay Area. But I mean, I would say that a situation where my test was definitely tested was when I was dealing with predator priests. When I was dealing with Kinsel, the fact that he was preying upon me, the fact that Monsignor Yarbrough, when I met him back in 2014, he said, "Oh, if you would like to talk about religious things, spiritual things, let's hang out sometime." And at that point, I was a little bit worried because I already had a situation with Kinsel, and I looked him up and I found out that he had sexually assaulted a young man years prior to us talking. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to confront this guy, and I did. My faith at that point wasn't exactly tested because I responded with zeal. I said, I'm going to confront this guy, and I yelled at him in the middle of a cafe. You can watch it. It's on BitChute. I could send it to you if you want. But it was on YouTube, but you get down for quote unquote bullying. But I wasn't bullying. I guess if you want to confront a predator, I don't know if that's bullying, but obviously it's not. But
well, not many people are willing to do that. Not many people have the courage to even try. So,
but yeah, and then I had the situation with going to Italy, and I went to this beautiful monastery in the middle of this village in the middle of the mountains, and it looked like something from a horror movie. It looked like something from Resident Evil 4. I hung out with all these monks and nuns, and for the most part, it was like just laughing and talking. But there was a lot of weirdness. I met the Mother Superior, and she told me about how she's friends with a Kabbalist, and she talked about the feminine and masculine energy and nature that is within God, and it was just very new agey. It was just bizarre, very bizarre. And then one of the monks there, he was a very tall Italian guy from Milan, and he approached me the night before I left that village. He approached me and he asked me to dance with him. And I said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I was get the hell out of here. It's crazy. And he walked away, and it just seeing how messed up things are. Cause like my experiences, I know, are not as bad as what other people have gone through, being sexually molested, sexually assaulted within the Catholic Church. But again, what I went through, it was sort of seeing a microcosm, or really getting an idea as to how bad things are. It's kind of like if you were to go to a neighborhood and someone said, "Don't go to that neighborhood, it's very dangerous." And you go there and you get robbed. Well, you didn't get killed, but you got an idea of how bad that place can be. Same thing with what I went through. And so going through those experiences and then reading all these crazy stories about molestation and sexual abuse and assault by priests, and the fact that it's covered up, it's protected. Predator priests are shifted around to different locations. They are promoted. You have priests who will even brag about the evils that they have done, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. And going through those sorts of situations, man, it makes you question everything, But then I have to come to this place within myself that sees the faith in a more simple way. You have yourself, you have your prayers, you still have the prayers of the rosary, you still have spiritual literature that you can look through, that you can read. You have reflection that you can still do. There are all these things that you can do that help you spiritually. And so I think trying to maintain that sort of simplicity, it really helps you disconnect from the evils in the institution, the big institution. If that makes any sense. You have to see your faith as not dependent on human beings. You have to see your faith as not dependent, because it's like, well, this priest did this, so therefore I don't think God exists, or I think that Christianity is a lie, or I think that Jesus Christ is not divine or the Son of God. You can't let the institution determine your faith. You have to. That's why after going through what I went through in 2014 with Kinsel, I began to really dig deeply within myself and cultivate this idea of a simpler way of viewing Catholicism, and that is doing what you can do individually, and having that relationship with God. And I know that sounds kind of Protestant-y, but it's been very helpful for me as a coping mechanism.
Yeah. I think a lot of Catholic people, they have a bad experience, and I would challenge that desire to cut yourself off from the beauty of Mass. And I attend Latin Mass with my family, and just the worship, the music, receiving the Eucharist in person, being surrounded by witnesses, and also being able to make friends with people it's a beautiful opportunity, and it gives us grace and accountability, being able to have friends there at Mass with us. So do you think that it's okay for us do we have a pass if we have experienced some kind of crisis or an abuse, or
a pass to what?
Been witness to a scandal? Do we have a pass from attending Mass?
Well, I mean, honest with you, I haven't gone to Mass in years. I haven't gone to Mass since 2019 because I mean, of all the weird experiences that I went through and seeing the things that I've seen and hearing so many weird stories. And I've been to so many churches within my diocese. You know, I spent almost 6 years looking for a good church and trying to find a church that was good, to put it simple. And I just couldn't find it, you know. And people who are sick and tired of the corruption of the church, and they're sick and tired of the scandal, and they've been through a scandal. I really can't. I mean, I'm not going to condemn those people, and I can't blame those people. It even came to the point in my life where I am not exaggerating when I say this. I was going to an SSPX church because I was so tired of it all. Tired of this Novus Ordo. St. Pius X, Catholic St. Pius X, the Order of St. Pius X.
Okay.
It's a traditionalist order it's technically not under Rome, but it still has something of a relationship with Rome. They're considered to be schismatic, which they are in a way. I mean, they are. I'm not going to mince words. But I went there for about 2 years because I was tired of the institution. I was tired of it. I was tired of going to a church where the priest talked like a homosexual. And I've seen this more than one time. I was tired of going to a church where the priest would invite himself to your house, and before you know it, he's laying on your bed like he lives in your house. Like, what the hell, you know? That happened to me one time. I was going to this church, and again, there was a priest there. He began to talk about, he was a traditionalist too. Came in like Kinsel, went against the modernism within the church, and he said all the right things. And he knew that I was an intellectual type of guy, and we had dinner before, so we had conversations about theology. And he said, "I would love to see your library." And this was after the Mass. I went to Mass, and then after leaving the Mass, he comes up to me and says, "I would love to see your library." So I said, "Sure." And he comes over without even giving me a specific time, which is not really a big deal. But he just comes over, and as I'm showing him my library, which you can see half of right behind me, he decides to lie down on my bed, looking at me. I mean, it was so bizarre. The whole situation was so bizarre, you know. And it was sickening, very sickening. And there's no one that you can go to. That's the thing. There's no one that you can go to. You can go to the bishops, you can go to the authority, the religious authority, and they don't do anything, you know. So the whole thing is completely messed. The whole thing is completely messed up.
I was going to go on to my next question, but I feel like I would like to respond to that and just say that if you are questioning everything and you've come to a position that is totally cynical of authority, then it seems like you are responding to the license that you see with another type of license. And that, to me, is this term Sodom. And I like that you're standing up against sodomy and how it has crept into the church and caused a lot of these rifts, and you're standing up against the sexual abuse scandal, because I mean, I'm definitely a moderate politically, but I really, really am inspired when people they have conviction. And I would just challenge that responding to license with another type of license and saying that mass isn't important and that the beauty and the worship and the music and the receiving of the Eucharist in person is not necessary or important or of extreme value as Catholics.
I'm not saying that we should respond to license with license. In fact, my initial strategy in 2014 was that we need to go and confront all of these priests. And back in the day when my website was huge, I mean, it was getting hundreds of thousands of views a day, I confronted Yarbrough because he said, "Oh, well, come hang out with me." Okay, fine. Let's meet at this cafe. And he said, "I would much prefer that we meet in my office." I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, because you want to grope me, you pervert. So I said, no. And I made up some lie. I made up something like, it's close to my work. It's easy for me, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, fine. So I went to this cafe and it's on video. I put it up online. And we talked, and then eventually the conversation escalated into a theological debate where he basically told me that demons don't exist and that he would never tell his congregation that homosexuality is a sin. And then he said, I got to go. He wanted to leave. It was so creepy was that when in the beginning of the conversation, I said, how much time do you have? And he said, I have all the time you want. That's what he told me. And this was in a Saturday afternoon, a day when he was supposed to be hearing confessions. Because Saturday usually is confession day. And it was around that time that he should have been in the church hearing confessions. And he said, I have all the time you want. It's like, well, you need to be hearing confession. So then once he realized that I was challenging him, he says, well, I got to go. And he gets up and I said, before you leave, let me ask you one last question. I said, does the name Hector Escalante ring a bell? And Hector Escalante was the young man that he assaulted. And he the whole environment of the whole cafe changed. I put the video up and I posted it up on shoebot.com, but I put it alongside an article called Operation Whip. And I said, Jesus took a whip, he went into the temple and he drove the thieves out. I said, we have to do this. We have to confront these people. We have to. If we don't, then it's over. It's the end. Like the whole thing's going to get taken over. I truly believe that. Because the bishops don't do anything. Nobody does anything. So it's up to the lay people to do something. And no one did anything. Okay. In fact, and you can quote me on this. Okay. I wrote, because I went on Church Militant a few times before that with Michael Voris, and I wrote to his producer and I said, hey, I have a video for you of me confronting a priest who 100% sexually assaulted a young man. And I confronted this guy. He's a predator. And the producer of the Church Militant, Matt Pearson, I think his name is, he wrote me back and he said, we would love this material. And I said, great. So I put the video together and I put it up on YouTube and I sent it to him. And I said, here's the video. And he never got back to me, which was weird because Matt always got back to me within the same day of me writing him. And I waited. And about 1 week passed, maybe a week and a half passed. And I wrote him and I said, Matt, what happened? And he wrote back to me and he said, the staff of Church Militant got together. We all watched the video. And he said, everybody in the studio wanted this video up on Church Militant except for one guy. And I'm going to assume that was Michael Voris. And then Matt Pearson wrote me saying, hey, because in the video, I go to Yarbrough's church. After confronting him in the cafe, he ran to his little sports car and drove off. And then about a week later, I went to his church because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna let him think that I'm gone. I forgot about him. Then I'm gonna surprise him. Psychological warfare. So it's kind of like when Musashi, the samurai, I think I'm saying his name correctly, Musashi. He was supposed to do a duel with a guy, and he came like an hour late. That sort of thing. So anyway, I go to the church and I didn't yell or anything like that. I did not disrupt the communion, but I went there Sunday afternoon in the middle of mass. He was passing the Eucharist to the congregants. And I just stood there maybe about 10, 15 feet away from him, filming him. And I just filmed him, just looking at him, and his face turned red, and it was fun, you know. And the ushers come over. The ushers come over, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And da, da, da. It's all in the video. And I said, "This man is a predator. He's a pervert." I said he kissed a young man on the lips. He sexually assaulted a young man. And then one guy was like, "I don't believe that." And I said, "It's reported by the San Antonio Express. It's in the publication. It's in the newspaper here. It's in the local newspaper." And they said, "You got to leave," or basically saying we're going to call the police. So as I was leaving, they followed me out, and I tried talking to this usher, and this is also in the video. And I said, "This young man was sexually assaulted by your priest, and the only thing that this guy could tell me was he's our Monsignor." So literally, no one does anything, and it's like, what do you do as a layperson? What do you do? What do you do? You know, and again, it's like if you're not going to church because you hate God or you hate religion or you're lazy, then yeah, that's a bad reason not to go to church. But if you go to church and it's after years of going to church, trying to do the right thing, trying to, fight against this evil, trying to purge the church of evil, and you find out that the entire institution is against you, it comes to the point where you think to yourself, why am I even bothering to help this institution? This institution hates me. It does. The Catholic Church, honest to God, I truly believe this. The Catholic Church hates people who want to do the right thing. I truly believe that. The Catholic Church hates people. I remember when I first converted to Catholicism, I was so excited. I had huge convert syndrome. And I remember going to this church, and I remember trying to talk to the priest. And like every time you try to talk to these priests, they'd just be super annoyed by you. Super annoyed by you. Yeah, and they don't even want to talk to you. I don't know. It's just, yeah, anyway.
I am also a convert, and I mean, I can see where you're saying you go into this holy church, and then as soon as someone crosses the line, which in your case it was much worse than that, you would just say goodbye. Because I've also had those experiences where I tried to stand up for my faith, and I would write on my blog or would write articles, and I actually admire that you're willing to get flack from the liberal media or from wolves within the Catholic Church, wolves in sheep's clothing. So I would be interested to hear how you connect the dots in terms of protecting and preserving your stamina when people misunderstand you or accuse you of things you haven't done or make assumptions about you or your character falsely.
So what always helped me is reading. I think reading is super helpful because knowledge truly is power. And when you understand things more, it gives you new things to think about, and new things to talk about. And I find that when you're the most lethargic, that's when you should act the most. That's when you're lethargic, because then it keeps you consistent. So I think that reading is really, really helpful. And also thinking about why you are Christian. Like, why are you a Christian? What is why? You have to question, because once you answer the why, then you know the what and the how pretty smoothly at that point. It's like it's all downhill from there. So once you realize why you are a Christian, what is the purpose of the Christian faith, and then you look at, this is something that I'm actually writing about right now, and I'm just about done with this article. It's going to come up today. It's about the corruption within the Catholic Church, but kind of in a way comparing Rome to Jerusalem, because because you have to look at the life of Christ, and you have to think about what did Christ go through? What did Christ experience under the institution of ancient Israel, of Jerusalem, of Judea, and how he saw it. And when Jesus went to the religious institution of his day, he had nothing but bad things to say about it. Truly, he had nothing but bad things to say about it. He called them whitewashed tombs and hypocrites, lawless people, evil. I mean, he called them all sorts of things, sons of the devil. He called them all sorts of things. And John the Baptist was living in a cave. And he wasn't going to the temple and like being a sycophant to the priestly order. He was criticizing the whole system. He was criticizing the powers that be. And when I look at Jerusalem, I mean, Jesus said the temple is going to be destroyed. This is what Jesus told them, because it's very interesting in what context he said that. The disciples came to Jesus and they said, "Look, Jesus, look at the architecture of this temple." And the Bible says something like they marveled at the construction. They marveled, look how beautiful, look how wonderful it is. And when you, I don't know, have you been to the Vatican?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
In 2003, I went on a grand tour of Italy, and we went to we started and ended in Rome and went to all the major cities in Italy.
So I was in Vatican in 2019, and I'll tell you right now, when you look at the architecture, when you watch it online, it's like, okay, but then you go, you see it in real life, and it is marvelous.
Oh yeah,
it's marvelous. It truly is. You look at this architecture and you think, how did men build such things? How did people build such things? So
definitely.
So the disciples, they marveled at the architecture, just like we today marvel at the architecture of church. Jerusalem was destroyed, and Christ told them, you see this temple that you're marveling at so much, it's all coming down. The whole thing is going to be destroyed. Why? Because the whole religious institution is evil. There's a story in the gospel where the Jesus and the disciples are picking wheat in the wheat field. A lot of English translations will say they were picking corn, but corn, as we know it, didn't exist in that part of the world until the Europeans went to Mexico and North America and they discovered corn. So they weren't picking corn. They were picking wheat.
Right.
And they were picking wheat, and the religious leaders, they pop up and they say, "Why are you picking wheat in the Sabbath?" And Jesus says that the Sabbath was made for man, and man was not made for the Sabbath. And I remember reading, hearing somebody, I think it was, who's the guy who wrote the book, The Jewish Roots of the Eucharist? Was it Petrie? I forgot.
I don't know.
Forgot his first name, but this Catholic scholar, his last name is Petrie. He did a video kind of giving his interpretations of these stories, and he presented a really fascinating interpretation of the story, saying that the Jewish priests come and they say, "Why are you picking wheat in the Sabbath?" And Jesus picks wheat and he gives it to his disciples. Just like in the Last Supper, he gave the Eucharist to his disciples. The Eucharist is a sacrifice of wheat. I mean, it is transubstantiated into the flesh of Christ, but it starts out as wheat. And Jesus gives the wheat to his disciples. And then these priests come and they're saying, "Why are you doing this?" And it's almost like Jesus was telling the Jewish priests, a new priesthood is on its way. A new priesthood is here. I'm giving this wheat to these disciples who are going to replace you guys. And that's eventually what happened. The Romans came. I mean, there's no Jewish priesthood today. Like, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a priesthood. And the Jews of today, the modern day Jews, Reformed, Orthodox, it doesn't matter. They can't really explain this phenomena. It's like, you guys have no priests. You have rabbis, but these aren't priests. You guys aren't sacrificing anything. But why don't the Jews today have priests? Because they have no temple, because the temple was destroyed. And it's really fascinating. This is why I tell everyone to read Josephus. Josephus was a Jewish historian, and he wrote this book called The Jewish Wars. And he gives the most detailed account ever written on the Roman-Jewish conflict. And he was a man who actually fought in the Roman-Jewish War. And he was Jewish himself. And he describes how before Jerusalem was destroyed, there were all these Jewish men walking around dressed up as women and engaging in homosexuality. And he says it wasn't just in one part of the city, it was throughout the whole city of Jerusalem. And this happened before the destruction of Jerusalem. And you look at, and who destroyed Jerusalem? Who destroyed the temple? The Romans. Rome destroyed the temple. Rome destroyed the priesthood of the Jews. And the priesthood, in a way, continues on in Rome, because Rome would become the center of Christianity eventually. And so the Roman priesthood inherits or really takes on the priesthood of Israel. So Jerusalem continues on in Rome. So it's like Rome destroys Jerusalem and takes the torch. And so now we have Rome, and Rome is Jerusalem. But what happened before Jerusalem was destroyed? There was homosexuality that was rampant in the city. What's happening in the Vatican? Homosexuality is rampant. It's amongst the cardinals, it's amongst the bishops, it's amongst the priests. Hell, in the early 2000s, the Vatican spent millions of euros, like 20 million euros or something, to buy 20 apartments that were smack right next to the biggest gay bathhouse in Europe. They said, "Oh, it's because we have conferences, you know." It's rampant. And I think that Rome eventually is going to be destroyed. Just like Jerusalem was destroyed. Just like when the disciples said, "Oh, Jesus, look, the architecture is so beautiful." And Jesus said, "No, it's all coming down." And you go to the Vatican today and you say, "Oh my God, the architecture is so beautiful." It's all coming down. It's all coming down. That's what I believe. Yeah. And if you want to get an idea of how that could look like, just look at the sack of Rome in 1527. We talk about, I have a New York accent. What the heck is wrong with me? We talk about, you know, how the Vandals sacked Rome or how the Nazis occupied it. Nothing compares to the sacking of Rome of 1527, when German Lutherans, who were mercenaries, part of a mercenary order called the Landsknecht, which means the Landsknecht, I believe, means the saviors or the protector or the servants of the land. That's what that means, I believe. Alongside Spanish imperial troops under Charles V, they invaded Rome because the Pope had made a secret alliance with the emperor's enemies. They invade Rome, and my God, they raped everything. They raped all the women. They raped even kids. They went into the orphanages. They killed all the kids. They raped nuns. And they go into the church of St. Peter, the Basilica of St. Peter. And on top of they made the altar of St. Peter into a slaughter platform, a chop up, an execution square. And they were killing person after person because all the people, a lot of people in the city, they thought, well, if we hide in St. Peter's Basilica, we'll be protected. So they all run into St. Peter's Basilica. Landsknecht, crazy Lutheran fanatics, go into the basilica, and they took every human being that was hiding in that church and they killed them on top of St. Peter's Basilica. And as they were orchestrating these executions, they were seen screaming, "Hail Luther." Okay, so instead of Heil Hitler, it was Hail Luther. So German history has a weird pattern like this. It's crazy, but I think something like that could happen in the future.
Well, it's interesting that you say that Rome destroys Jerusalem, and then you said Rome is going to be destroyed because I've had people that I know in my family say that Catholics are not Christians and Catholics don't have Jesus. And my response to that is, well, the Catholic Church was the only church for 1,500 years. So how does that stack up? And as a convert, someone who came back home to the Catholic Church, I think what you're saying, there's something there, there's something right about that the Protestant Reformation watered down a lot of what we had going with the start of the Anglican Church, and then the gradual splitting of the American Protestant Church. I think there's something to what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that doesn't mean that we support Luther or anything like. I don't support Luther or anything like that. But what I do believe is that I believe that God uses wicked people or violent people as his scourge. I truly believe it, because you see that all throughout the Old Testament, where God is using the Babylonians and the Assyrians and the Canaanites to punish his people. And I think it's no different for us. I think that eventually God is going to use a warlike people like the Germans to punish the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And people think, well, the Muslims are going to destroy the Vatican. That's possible. You know, the Arabs, they did sack Rome at one point in I want to say it was in the 5th century or so. No, sorry. my mistake, 9th century. 9th century, the Arabs of the Muslims, the Moors of North Africa, they went right through the Tiber and they entered the city of Rome, and they plundered St. Peter's Basilica. They plundered St. Paul's Basilica. They killed and they raped and they did all these things, but they were defeated pretty easily. But when you look at what happened with the Landsknecht and the imperial troops who invaded Rome in 1527, I mean, it was horrific. Around 45,000 people were butchered, or they were wounded, or they were exiled. It was the worst sacking of Rome in the city's history. And I think that in a way, it gives us an idea. And here's another thing. There was an Italian historian who lived at that time. I forget his name was it's difficult to say his name. His name was like Guiardicini or something. I forgot his last name. But he wrote a book called The History of Italy, and he recounts the sacking of Rome of 1527. And he talks about how when the Landsknecht grabbed the priests and the bishops and the cardinals, they would castrate them. And the historian adds, and these clergymen did not express the smiles that they presented when they were living their effeminate lifestyle before. So there was homosexuality amongst the priesthood. And here come these Lutheran Protestant radicals thinking that they are doing God a service. They take these priests and say, oh, we're going to castrate you. What do you see in the Vatican today? I mean, there was an artist in the 16th century who called himself Il Sodoma, the sodomite. That's what he called himself. He lived in the 16th century. He called himself Il Sodoma. I am the sodomite. So today is worse. Today, the situation is worse. And I don't think that all of a sudden Rome or the Vatican is going to be exempt from God's wrath.
Is your dad a Catholic? Is he Catholic?
Yes, my father joined the Catholic Church at the same year I did, 2013.
Okay. Well, this is my last question, and to stick into what we were saying, I mean, I think we can all agree that whether or not, wherever we come down on the Protestant Church, we do have unity and the joy of the gospel. And I would, if you can express concisely and as precisely as possible how your faith informs your view, perspective, and philosophy. Anything related to being grateful and thankful for your faith, or books you've read that have informed this perspective. And that's the last question.
So yes, of course, religion definitely has an influence on the human mind, everything that it does. Or if you do something bad, then it's going to influence you to feel bad about what you did. So remorse, how you're remorseful, or the decision that you know you should make, or the decision that you do make. Yes, all these things are influenced from your religion, because we're not going to be on this earth for very long. Life is actually short, and so because life is short, and death is near, you ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of living if you're going to die anyway and life is short? Well, then you come to the realization, well, life is short and death is inevitable, because this life is not all that there is. This life it's like a waiting room. It's a testing ground, and it's for us to refine ourselves for heaven. Once you come to that realization, then the inevitability of death and the short duration that we have on this earth, it doesn't seem as chaotic anymore. Because it's like, oh, well, I'm here to be the best that I can be, and to have a relationship with God. So once you come to that point, then of course, yes, religion is going to be at the center of your life. So yeah, that's what I would answer that. And then being grateful, I mean, of course, salvation, and then also just knowing that there is an alternative to what your flesh wants, because your flesh wants all sorts of things. But then you come to the realization that you don't have to be a slave to your flesh. Like, you don't have to be a slave to anger which is something that I kind of struggle with. You don't have to be a slave to whatever it is that your impulses lead you to. And so having that grounded, that having your being grounded in that is very liberating. So I would stop there.
All right. That's a really good answer. Thank you so much for letting me interview you and for joining my readership. I do not use YouTube often at all, but I am fluent on social media. So if you don't mind, please go give me a follow. My Instagram handle is @TacyWB, and my blog page is Tacy Williams Beck blog on Facebook.
Okay. All right. It was fun talking.
All right. Pleasure to talk to you.
All right.
Thank
you too. God bless.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye. Okay. So that's done. Still online here. Some of you guys are still on. If you guys want to ask me questions, I might as well. I'm going to be here. So I noticed that there was a theological argument in the comments. I'm not going to pay any attention to that. Yes, I know about the Taliban. They're stealing all of America's technology. I know. It's almost like it was set up to be that way. Thank you, Guts 166. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll be here for a few minutes. If you guys keep asking me questions, then I'll stay longer. Okay. I recorded this interview, so I'm going to be posting it up on YouTube. And BitChute. I should put it up on BitChute, actually. Can you talk about the situation in Afghanistan? Yeah, it's completely messed up. Trillions of dollars wasted on Afghanistan. Taliban is taking over without a fight. Taliban sucks at fighting anyway. But they're taking over without a fight. They just took Kabul. You're going to have a huge refugee problem. You're already having one. The Iranians and the Turks have been dealing with Afghan refugees for a while. It's going to be just Afghanistan is going to be another center point for Islamic, the international wave of Islamic fanaticism. Turkey is already planning on having talks with the Taliban. Same thing with the Russians. Turkey is going to try to take advantage of the disorder in Afghanistan to establish its own foothold within the country. Turkey may even use the Taliban as its own proxy. That's also possible. Which country most likely to lead Christianity? Man, if I had to guess, probably Russia. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but I think Russia is militarily the most powerful country in the Christian world. Did you get my video on handouts? Did you send it to? I haven't seen it, no. Hey, Christopher. I'm going to get off Facebook because... Hold on a second. I swear, Facebook followers are just, I don't know. It deals with Afghanistan. Where's the video? I haven't seen it, Heather. You know, isn't it amazing that Heather and I had we had a debate, posted it up, and we're still talking like nothing happened. That's great. I mean that sincerely. I think that's cool. We can have a debate, spirited debate. We can still be friends. We can still be friends. No hard feelings at all. the situation in Afghanistan. Why not?
Let me try to explain to you the situation where we are. It's very hectic.
Yeah, I've read that the Taliban, before even they took Kabul, they were going into villages and forcing people to give them their daughters for sex slaves. But, you know, this is another opportunity for one half of America to tell the other half, your president did this, and the other half of America is going to tell the other half, yeah, no, it wasn't our president. It was part of past American policy. I think the whole idea of like blaming Biden on the Taliban, what's going on in Afghanistan, I think it's just incredibly stupid. It's incredibly obnoxious. Because remember, Obama talked about withdrawing from Afghanistan. Trump, his administration made a deal with the freaking Taliban, and his administration simply carried out what the Trump administration wanted to do anyway. But the difference is that Trump had balls. And then we're going to have a whole debate on refugees. I know it's coming because they're going to talk about bringing in Afghans into America, poor Afghans that, you know, helped us during the war. And you're going to have all these righties. They're going to come out and they're going to say they're going to destroy America. And the other side's going to say, no, you racists. They're migrants. They helped America to fight the Taliban. How dare you be so callous? And we're going to have all these BS debates. The whole world is changing, everybody. That's the bottom line. Whole world is changing. Yeah, I heard about that Death to America chant. Whole thing is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. The Taliban is a joke. They're a joke. You see these little noodle-armed guys walking around. They could barely lift 30 pounds. And they're taking over Afghanistan because the military in Afghanistan really didn't give a crap about fighting anything. There's a video you can see of these Taliban fighters at a gym, and they're trying to lift weights, and they can barely lift 30 pounds. You see this guy with a dumbbell that looks like it's about 30 pounds, and you can barely even lift it. Yeah, they had it was the gym in the presidential palace in Kabul. What's a preterist? What, a predator? I don't know what that is. Russia most likely is going to take advantage of the situation. Turkey, Russia, I think those are the two countries to observe in this whole situation. Because Russia does want to control Afghanistan. It did in the past. But I think that Turkey's going to try to capitalize on the situation. Heather, I have not seen the link. No, did you send it? Did you put it up on the comments, or where did you put it? Anyway, I think Turkey's going to try to capitalize on this whole situation to try to have a foothold within Central Asia. Of course, Turkey can't do this alone, which, as I've said in the past, this is why Turkey wants to work with Hungary and Pakistan. So I do not see that link, Heather. I think maybe if it's a YouTube video, just give me the title and I can look it up. Because I'm not seeing it anywhere. Let me see here. Oh, I see it now. I see it now. Okay. Yeah, I see it. Okay, thank you. I got the link. Oh, it's Brendan O'Connell. I'm not surprised.
Mirror this information and start learning how to articulate it and take it into the right places.
So what does he talk about?
Understand the bigger one, which is the Tokyo program. You need to understand the Bunting Cloverleaf map. You need to understand the Bikini World Island and Kushel, zombie and really bad. You'll see the thin veneer of civilization stripped away, and you'll see nice neighbors doing the most horrendous things possible. It's like little 19-year-olds from Boise, Idaho, were killing kids in Afghanistan and doing all sorts of horrible shit.
Okay, I'll watch that later. Belt and Road Initiative. Is that something? Hold on. Is that something that pertains to China? Yeah, Belt and Road. Chinese. Oh, it's about the evil Chinese again. Chinese are going to take over the world. The Chinese are not going to take over anything. Oh, I just got done interviewing a Catholic blogger. Let me tell you guys something about the Chinese, okay? I remember this is going to be a little bit insensitive, but I went to this Chinese restaurant years ago and I asked for the beef chow mein, Mongolian beef, and they say here it is, and it was pork. It's like, who are you kidding? And they were trying to bamboozle me by giving me pork when I asked for beef. I mean, they were just blatantly lying. I never went back there again, but yeah, that's China, okay? Too damn cheap to even buy regular beef. You're wrong about Iranian nationalism. It's completely separate from the government, and it's mainly the young people. Okay, so you're correct that young people are very nationalistic in Iran, from what I've heard. But there is definitely people within the Iranian government, or there have been people within the Iranian government who have been nationalistic. I think Ahmadinejad reflected that, and I think he had people within his cabinet who definitely reflected that as well. But yeah, I mean, it's also true, and just to be fair, that there are people in Iran who are against nationalism. You know, and those tend to be the more of the conservative types. Ahmadinejad was an idiot. You could say that all you want, but the fact is that people voted for him and he was in the government. So he took a cylinder from King Cyrus and talked about how it represents how all leaders should be or whatever. You just watched Apocalypto. Yeah, I saw that movie in theater when it came out. It was a freaking masterpiece. Yeah, I know they want to have some kind of relationship with the Taliban. I know. I think that Afghanistan, I don't know. I think it's just going to be a playground for people who are way more powerful than the Taliban, because the Taliban's a freaking joke. Bunch of noodle-armed dudes with gowns. They're just a bunch of noodle-armed dudes with gowns. They suck at fighting. They're like ISIS. They suck at fighting. Any serious military force could destroy them. They defeated Russia. Yeah, with American help. What if the Chinese enslave the Taliban? That's not going to happen. What this whole situation in Afghanistan does represent is the fact that America is turning to isolationism. That's all it means. America is turning to isolationism. That's the American empire is retracting itself. It's oh God. It's going to be no longer the police power of the world. The world's going to be broken down into different poles of power. Imagine your democratically elected leader being overthrown. Operation Ajax. Yep, I know. Mohammed Mossadegh, or Mossadegh. I don't know how to pronounce it. Simply because he wanted to nationalize oil, but you won't understand. Intervention is, yeah, dude, I know about this already. Yes, I know. He wanted an international. Yes, I get that. That's why they got rid of him. I totally get that. I know something about this history. There were people within Mossadegh's administration who were also hardcore nationalistic as well. I mean, it's not that difficult to believe. Yeah. No, I agree. The Americans got rid of Mossadegh. The CIA did so. And then after Mossadegh was overthrown, there were a bunch of Iranian Nazis who actually worked for the Third Reich, who began to take high-level positions within the Iranian government. Don't ask Heather who Brendan O'Connell is. She'll dude. No. This is like asking your liberal arts teacher about the Native American struggle. They won't stop. Will America balkanize? I don't think America is going to necessarily balkanize. It's just that the American empire is exhausted, okay? We have exhausted trillions of dollars, human life, hundreds of thousands of people killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, thousands of U.S. soldiers killed. Americans are sick and tired of interventionism. They're just tired of it on both sides, liberal and conservative. Like, they don't want anything to do with it anymore. That's it. So what's happening is that the U.S. empire, the American empire, it's isolating itself. It's reclusing itself from the rest of the world. That is what's happening. And the CIA already put out a report about this not too long ago, saying that expect by the decade of the 40s that America is no longer going to be the sole pole of power, that we are going to be living in a multipolar world. Nationalism is a must, but the regime also needs to go. Dude, okay. I don't know why we're disagreeing. You call yourself Aryan JN. I don't know what the JN stands for, but I don't know why we're disagreeing. I think I'm going to assume that you're Iranian, all right, from what you're writing and the name that you give yourself. You call yourself an Aryan. And you're saying that nationalism is absolutely necessary, which is exactly what Iranian nationalists believe. And I'm going to assume that you're a young person, which also confirms exactly what I suspect regarding Iran. You hate the regime, which is what a lot of nationalists also do. And a lot of nationalists hate the regime. I don't like the Iranian regime either, so I can't blame you for that. But you're just confirming everything that I've been saying, that a lot of people in Iran are nationalistic. Yes. Your name is Aryan. Oh, okay. Are you familiar? I mean, listen, I would love to talk with you audibly if you want. Maybe we can set something up. I need to get Stream Live on here so I can make it easier for people to call me. And I don't blame you for resenting the regime. I cannot blame you for that. The regime has ruined Iran 100%. But again, you're confirming what I've been saying about Iran. Are you familiar with the Iranian singer Saj Aryan? Amazing Iranian singer, one of the best, probably the best singer from Iran, in my opinion. May America fall swiftly if it doesn't repent. The right hand of the Zionist arm who has corrupted the West since 45. Oh no. When are we free of its yoke? We can rebuild and restore our dignity. Dan's, how do you pronounce her name? Dan is skilled. Is that correct? That's an interesting position that you have. So how would restoring your dignity look like? I'm just interested to know. I'm not trying to challenge you, but I would like to know when you say pretty close. Okay. When you say that you want to be free of America's yoke and then you can rebuild and restore your dignity, what does that look like? I have not listened to Liebeck. You know what? I'm going to look him up right now. Liebeck or Leibach. Wissen das Volk. Oh no, is this Nazi music? I hope it's not Nazi. No, I guess maybe. I don't know. I hope it's not Nazi music. This isn't Nazi music, is it? Okay, good. Guys, by the way, I have an article that will be out today. So go on to shoebot.com later on today or tomorrow. It'll be up there by tomorrow and read it. It's going to be a great piece. Glenn Beck. Oh my God. What a joke Glenn Beck was. What will push the U.S. to withdraw troops from Germany? Dude, Trump was super close to doing that. Trump was super close to pulling troops out from Germany. He wanted to pull out 1/3 of U.S. troops from Germany. I think Biden reversed that, which is actually probably a good idea because you don't want Germany to be a rogue state. But I think eventually that is going to happen. I think America is just going to pull out of everything. And the Germans are going to say, hey, listen, America, we got this. We don't need you anymore. The German military is pretty powerful. We don't need you. Okay. And then you're going to see the German Taliban rise up. The German Taliban, the big German guys with the tattoos, and they drink beer and they have guns and they know how to kill people and they torture people. That's the Taliban that worries me. I'm worried about the German Taliban, not the noodle-armed Taliban that eat bread all day. What would push Germany to do that, or what would push America to do that? I think that if America got some sort of guarantee that Europe could defend itself, I think that would be, because America's not going to do something drastic like that without having the proper context in which to do so. So if the Europeans could reassure the Americans, we got this. We are gonna cooperate with NATO. We're not enemies. We're good, but we can do this on our own. And then America says, okay. There would have to be certain conditions met before America would do that. Because a powerful country like the United States is not going to do anything unless there's some sort of a pretense or a reason to do so. And the reason for that is because countries like America, they have to have a reason to do something, like invading Afghanistan, 9/11. That was the reason to invade Afghanistan. America pulling troops out of Afghanistan, that was after spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Afghanistan's military. And then America thinking, okay, we're going to leave. Hopefully everything will be okay. And the Taliban told the U.S., we're not going to do anything violent. Oh, okay. They told us so. The same thing I think would happen, or a similar type of situation would have to be there for America to leave Germany. Germans say, we got this. We're cool. We're not enemies. Okay. And that's where the nightmare begins. Why is America the strongest military? I think that one of the things that makes America so strong is its geographic position. America is on two oceans. It's in the middle of two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, which makes it extremely difficult to invade, makes it extremely difficult to attack. And also, I think it's because of the fact that we're, one, an extension of Europe. I mean, in a way, we are an extension of Europe. All these European peoples from Norway, Germany, Great Britain, the Germanic countries, they all came here. The biggest ethnic group in the United States is German. That is even though the first Europeans who settled here were people from the British Isles and people from Spain and France, the biggest ethnic group in America is German. In fact, in the state of Texas, I believe they were negotiating whether or not they should make German the official language. Or I think that was for all the United States. But in Texas, there are areas where people still speak German. And there was one area in Texas called New Braunfels where the official newspaper, until just a matter of years ago, had two different versions, the English version and the German version. So think about it. Germans are some of the most warlike people in the world. They are some of the most warlike people in history. And you have a country that's humongous, that's geographically speaking bigger than Europe. America is bigger than the European Union. It's bigger than Europe. And America is kind of like a conglomeration it's like a union of different countries, right? Each state got its own constitution. It has its own Congress. It has its own, it has laws that differ from a state can have laws that differ from other states. So each state has its own limited autonomy. They're still under Washington, but just kind of like how EU countries are under Brussels. Each state in America is under Washington. And if you think about it, you have this country that's bigger than Europe, in between two oceans, and that is inhabited mainly by Germanic people. Enough said. You got yourself a powerful ass country. I think that's what helps it. And then we have so many different, we have so much innovation here, and Germanic people are extremely innovative. Americans are very innovative. America beats the world in weapons manufacturing, military technology, all of these things. So it's cultural and it's geographic. That's how I would answer that question. Am I religious? Yes, I believe in God, and I do try to follow my faith as best as I can. Yeah, the Taliban guys are all noodle-armed weaklings. A lot of these guys are just weaklings. A lot of these Taliban guys, they'll cry. They're the types of people they'll start crying once the soldiers get them. Neo-Nazism are very popular in Germany and many European countries. Yes, there are. There's tons of Nazis in Germany. The YouTube video, Henry Rollins on Cynicism, spoke to me so much in describing what's closest to my perception of life. Having an FBI file on me. It's awesome. Heather, the FBI is looking at you? If so, why? We must pray for the Christians in Afghanistan. A Taliban victory doesn't mean, yes, they're going to kill Christians in Afghanistan, 100%. German Texas is one of my top reoccurring nightmares. Yeah, there's a lot of Mexicans in Texas, but Texas is still a majority white state. And when you look at the ethnic group of white people in Texas, the biggest one are the Germans. Yeah, America controls the oceans. Absolutely. Do you think America will send troops to kill the Taliban? If they do, it's going to be politically not good for Biden. If Biden sends troops into Afghanistan to actually go to war, because right now, okay, America's sending 3,000 troops to Afghanistan, but that's only to evacuate the U.S. embassy in Kabul. That's it. That's the only reason why they're there. But if Biden begins to try to do a whole war, it tries to resume the war with the Taliban, it's not going to look politically good for Biden, because again, the atmosphere, the political atmosphere of the United States right now is anti-war. America don't want to go to war. After the German sack of Rome, what was the impact on the church? Devastated the church, and that was at the peak of the Protestant Reformation. So I'm pretty sure that gave way more of a sense of empowerment to the Protestant side, and it just weakened the church politically. Do you think NATO will help? Help what? What is your faith? Christian. If you could travel, hold on. If you could travel to any country right now, where would you go? Spain. I love Spain. I went to Spain years ago. Wonderful country. America is so strong is because of the Mossad? No, that's a bunch of bullcrap. I mean, if the Mossad controls America, just give me some evidence for that. I'm open to believe that. Give me some evidence. What's the evidence that the Mossad is the reason why America is so powerful? Why do people still think about America all day when the Christians they are killed are enslaved by Taliban? Yeah, I know. It's sad how people think so nationalistically as opposed to just having compassion for other people. I read news that Erdogan will work with Pakistan to stable. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yep. Rise of Turkey. What's wrong with Nazism? Oh God. Is this a trick question? I don't think we have to go that far to explain why there's something wrong with Nazism. But I have a Danish man who's asking me what is wrong with Nazism. He's asking him, a dude in the United States, what's wrong with Nazism? That's. Could you tell me why you asked the question? And do you think there's something wrong with Nazism? If not, tell me what is not wrong with Nazism. A noodle-armed weakling trained with AK-47 are as dangerous as any enemy. Yeah, they are, but against civilians, they're dangerous. Against trained soldiers that are kind of not expecting what to happen, yes, they're dangerous. But against a well-trained military force that knows what it's doing, that knows what it has to do to get things done, I mean, the Taliban is garbage. Oh, I see what you mean there. Okay. Yeah, Pakistan shouldn't be saying anything about stabilization. They can't stabilize their own damn country. Pakistan is an absolute freaking shithole. Hate that country. It's crap. What's wrong with a brutal, bloodthirsty, neo-pagan, ultra-nationalist political system that brings death everywhere it goes? I mean, I don't know, dude. People are, it's the far left, man. I mean, how far are these people going? You know, the far left, the political left is just out of control. You know, first it was SJWs, and now they're telling us that Nazism is bad. I mean, the left is out of control, guys. Conservatives really need to wake up. Okay, man, send me a video. Why should people care about your opinions? They don't have to. Why are you here? The control of the Taliban in Afghanistan gives confidence to fundamental Islam in Indonesia. That's a good point. The fact that it fights against the synagogue of Satan, which murdered our Lord. You do realize that Nazis killed Catholics too, right? This guy doesn't know about Nazism. Oh, tell me about the greatness of Nazism. Just tell me. What's the greatness of Nazism? Why do you like Nazism so much? It's not neo-pagan. There were occultist elements like Rosenberg and Himmler. Yeah, why were there occultists in it? Tell me. If it was so Christian, why were there occultists in the Nazi circles? TL Ciatoli, I asked you a question. Why do you like Nazism so much? What's so great about Nazism? Cat is dead asleep. Why was Judas a disciple of Jesus? I mean, dude, are we really going to get into the Hitler-Jesus comparison here? So Hitler was against Rosenberg. Is that what you're telling me? Got a Danish guy who's a Nazi. So Hitler was against Rosenberg. Do you have any evidence of that? Being against Jesuits is 99% of the time a virtue. Okay, so we have a... Oh God, I thought you were actually going to be a formidable arguer here. Yeah, we have a Chris Pinto up on here who, with the Hitler stash. We have a Chris Pinto in the house, everybody. Years ago, I debated a dude named Chris Pinto. This guy was trying to find a Jesuit under every rock, and he was like, "It's the Jesuits, everybody." You can watch it on YouTube. Look up Theodore Schubach, Chris Pinto. This dude reminds me. This Ciatoli guy reminds me of Chris. We got a Pinto in the house. Pinto beans over here, guys. But this time, he's just a Nazi. Chris Pinto was just a crazy Protestant guy. I don't look for Jesuits under the bed. Dude, you brought up the Jesuits. You came to the point where you would support a genocidal regime like Hitler just because you don't like the Jesuits. That right there, that's a fanatic. I love how fanatics will accuse other people of being fanatics. I just love it. Not a straw man, dude. You just said anyone who goes against the Jesuits, anything that goes against the Jesuits is going to be a virtue. And now you're walking it back, or maybe it looks like you're about to walk it back. Anyway, yeah. So we got two Nazis up in the house. Maybe if any more want to pop up, or I don't know. People are crazy. They're like, well, if you go against the Jesuits, it's good. Oh, he killed millions of ethnic Poles who were Catholic. Doesn't matter. He killed millions and millions of people. The Nazi regime was filled with occultists and eugenicists. That doesn't matter. That they had a proxy. They used Croatian nationalists as proxies, Ukrainian nationalists as proxies who butchered people, cut them up, raped them. Oh, that's fine as long as they're against the Jesuits. But I'm not a fanatic. What a flippin' joke you people are. So anyway, Mr. Dennis Skilled, I'm waiting for the amazing evidence. Hitler had occultists in his circles. He had oh yeah, he worked with homosexuals. The SA dude, Roach, or however you say his name is, was a sodomite. What's a Christian doing hanging out in a gay club? What is a Christian doing as a failed art student hanging out in a gay club? If you're a failed art if you're an art student hanging out with a bunch of gays, I'm like, oh, dude, yeah, he's a crazy guy in the he's a crazy guy in the Bay Area somewhere. Yeah, I know what you're going to say, but he killed them. Again, what is a Christian doing hanging out with homosexuals and using homosexuals? Oh my gosh. The video of me confronting the priest, I'll send it to you. I'll put it up in the comments, actually. Hold on. It's up on BitChute. Let's see. Okay, here it is. This is Monsignor. There's the video. I got the link right up there. Do you do realize they were still homosexuals in the Nazi ranks? And Hitler getting rid of them in the night of the Long Lives had absolutely nothing to do with being against homosexuality. It was just a power grab. It's a power struggle. That's all it was. We have a Ukrainian guy, or sorry, Croatian guy here who knows that Nazism is bullcrap. And the Danish guy thinks that Hitler was golden. Mr. Danish Nazi, you do also realize that Hitler believed in evolution, right? And Darwinism. And he also supported not euthanizing. He supported a policy of mandatory sterilization on the unfit. Dude, in his Mein Kampf, it talks about evolution. It talks about survival of the fittest. He was a devout Catholic. Then why the hell did he even state that Christianity was like the biggest joke to have ever come to mankind? And you do realize there were tons of people in the Wehrmacht who were cross-dressers. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let's have a Mein Kampf Bible study here. We're having a Wednesday night Mein Kampf study, everybody. Turn to your book. Turn to your Mein Kampfs. Hitler, chapter 3, verse 5. Reminds me of the debates I used to get in the SSPX. Let's see here. Quote from Hitler, Mein Kampf. The stronger must rule. It must not unite with the weaker, thus sacrificing its own stature. Only the born weakling can think this cruel, and that is why he is weak and a defective man. For if this law did not hold, any conceivable evolution of organic living things would be unthinkable. Straight out of Darwinism. Always struggle is a means to improve the health and stamina of the species, and thus a cause of its evolution. By any other process, all development and evolution would cease, and the very reverse would take place. Another thing that's straight out of Darwin. But little as nature wishes a mating of weaker with stronger individuals, still less does she want the fusion of a higher with a lower race, since otherwise the whole labor of selective evolution, perhaps through thousands of years, would be set at naught. Oh, Lord. Sounds like Darwinism to me. Yeah, Hitler also did like Islam as well. Okay, now you're just changing the subject, Mr. Daniskjold. A post-war edit. So now you're engaging in conspiracy. You're now attributing it to a conspiracy theory. That's what you're doing, which is what everyone does when they're not winning an argument. This is exactly what happened when I argued with Chris Pinto, and I would show him quotes from people. I would show him quotes from like ancient church fathers, and then he would say, "Oh, the Catholics must have edited that. The Catholics must have added that in." Yeah, evidence, please. Can't prove crap. Yep, the Croatian Nazis, the Muslim Nazis from Albania and Bosnia. You also had the Ukrainian psychopaths who butchered tens of thousands of people in Poland. Yeah. 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 Hitler ain't no friend of mine, I'll tell you that. Is Ted related to Hitler? I don't know, man. Can you recognize my pure Aryan features? Dude, Chris Pinto is one of the most like anti-Catholic people I've ever talked to, but his anti-Catholicism was so cringe and so fringed that it was just so out there. There was no way you could have any sort of productive dialogue with him. But you could watch my debate with him on YouTube. Just type in Schubot and Pinto, and you'll get it. The Bible proves Muhammad, but when it doesn't, it was exactly same damn mentality. I don't care about race. Then why are you following Hitler? You don't care about race. That's awesome, my dude. Stop following Hitler. What? Schickelgruber? I don't even know what that is. Schickelgruber? What is that? Oh. The Bible has been corrupted. So we have a Muslim and we got some Nazis in the house. Oh, you're not are you a Muslim, Aryan, JN? Or are you one of those Iranians who just hates religion? Hitler had grids. Hitler seemed to be a social Darwinist, pantheistic evolutionist. Are you a Zoroastrian, Mr. Adion? This might be off topic, but what do you think about Elder Paiseo's prophecy about Russia? I mean, it could be true. I don't know. I think eventually Russia and Turkey are going to have a war, and there's going to be some sort of cosmic struggle taking place. But I can't say that Paiseos' prophecies are true. I just can't. I have no evidence. Theodore is not going to tell you who runs the world. That's right, because I'm getting paid by Israel, guys. Any Catholic historical figures you can make as an example today? Historical figures? Bernardino of Siena. You can look him up. Bernardino of Siena. He was trying to expose the sodomite mafia within the Catholic Church, within Catholic society in Italy in those days, and he was almost stabbed to death. There was an attempted assassination on him. You can look it up. San Bernardino of Siena. Any interesting questions that you guys have for me? Any Nazi apologetics, or do you want to continue having a Mein Kampf study? Wednesday night Mein Kampf study? Dude, I'm just hiding the fact that I'm a Jew. Look at me. I'm a man of the Semitic strata. What do you think about the Pope saying the vaccines are an act of love? I mean, it's not surprising. It's just, what do you expect him to say? Don't take it. You know, people want to preserve life. They want to preserve human life. They want to get rid of the virus. So he says, it's an act of love, guys. Take the vaccine. I don't think there's an evil conspiracy involved. What do you think of defunding the police? I think it's retarded. We need to actually increase funding for the police. Give them more guns. I want Hummers, 50 caliber machine guns. Cops need to look like something from Black Hawk Down. Give them more guns. I think it's retarded. I think in every case where we've funded the police, we've had increases in crime. Let's make a Sunday night Mein Kampf study to honor the sun god. Turn to Mein Kampf, Hitler chapter 5, verse 6, everybody. An opinion on the German Arabian Legion. Yeah, they were Arab Nazis, and they formed their own little armed unit, and they were a proxy for the Nazis. There were plenty of Muslims, and they are to this day plenty of Muslims who love Hitler. So, yep, Nazism in the Muslim world is very real. How do you suppose we retake society and return to decency without either some spontaneous dude? You keep pivoting. I give you a point, right? You tell me something, I respond, and then you say, how are we going to do A, B, C, and D? You're not really having a good faith effort in this discussion. You just keep pivoting, my friend. You're not really my friend. No Nazi is my friend. So, are there a lot of Nazis in Denmark? That's the real question I have. Did you hear that we left 158? No, I haven't. I heard that from you, but it doesn't surprise me. 158 Blackhawks. Does the Taliban even know how to use them, though? Hold on. I don't see anything in the news about helicopters. Oh, yeah. Taliban captures Afghan helicopters. Do they know how to ride those things? Just here, there were videos of Taliban fighters milling around Russian-made Mi-35 Hind attack helicopters and Mi-17 medium transport aircraft, some in questionable states of operation with missing rotor blades and obvious battle damage. I'm not seeing any evidence so that they're flying these things. I don't know. The Taliban's a complete joke. That's possible. I'm having a hard time trying to talk to others in this chat. I'm the third wheel. Yep. I remember it was so much fun making that priest run away like a little rat. Why should someone pick the Catholic Church with all its problems? Oh, dude, that's a difficult question, man. I don't know. I guess join the Orthodox if you don't want a priest to invite you over for dinner. And then when you go to the restaurant, you find out that it's actually a date, or he thinks it's a date. So, I mean, I guess go to the Coptic Church, go to the Assyrian Church. But if you don't want a priest potentially sexually harassing you, stay away from the Latin Church. Oh God! Again, will a Yugo Communist Manifesto be a good substitute? What? I mean, I don't want communism. You got to put out the German accent when talking about our Mein Kampf study. And dude, when you do the Mein Kampf study, you have to say the German words with 100% accuracy. The PSYOP controllers will just keep playing their... Okay, no evidence, just rhetoric and pivoting. Christianity is an amalgam of ancient Semitic beliefs with Indo-European influences. Prove it. This is the typical argument that all these Iranian nationalists like to use. Yeah, I heard that it's supposed to be complete up by September 11th, but they may push it into... They may... Hold on. I think they may actually make it earlier. I don't know. It's supposed to happen in September, but it may be a different date. The chat is getting way weirder, dude. I'm sorry, man. I got all these weirdos. He's a cult of personality and arrogant. Who are you referring to, Heather? Are you saying that I'm arrogant? That's a sincere question. Are you saying that I am arrogant? Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. Yep, that's what I read. Ted, do you stay in the Catholic Church because you are convinced of the papal claims despite the sexual... I mean, I'm convinced of the... I don't know. I'm convinced of the theology, but it's just the institution is just rotten. Didn't they rename Afghanistan? Let's see here. Do you know how many messiahs were... Oh, God, we're going to get to the Jesus is Osiris arguments now. We're going back to the early 2000s and the 90s. Yep. Also, during the Mein Kampf meetings, you have to duck walk. You got a goose step to your chair. Oh, Jay Dyer. Okay, yeah. That makes sense. The fact that you think the last one made it out is funny because you seem intelligent enough. It's just like Muhammad saying, I am the last prophet. What are you talking about, dude? Talking about Christianity as a religion. You have no evidence of anything that you're saying. I mean, you have no evidence for your conclusion that Christianity somehow is a product of some kind of Iranian religion. Do you see technocracy and transhumanism as being a real threat to humanity? Not necessarily. Transhumanism, yes. Technology, no. Technology just makes it easier for people to kill each other. I think that there will definitely be, and there definitely are industrialists who want to push for evil ideologies like transhumanism. Remember, you know, who made Hitler chancellor? It was a bunch of industrialists. So industrialists in the future will usher in something evil like the Third Reich. Not all of them, but a number of them will. Muhammad was the most obvious false prophet in history. Jesus' story is entirely unique with no true companions. Are you a Dr. Taylor Marshall fan? Not really. I never really watched. I used to read some of his articles when I was a new Catholic, but then I don't really look at his stuff anymore. Yeah, I get that Hitler was popular amongst the voters. I know that already, but that still doesn't change the fact that they were industrialists who wanted him to become chancellor. Okay, you guys are just arguing, so maybe I should leave. I've been here for 2 hours now. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, I'm gonna get going, guys. I've been here for 2 hours, so it's getting dark. Talk to you guys later. Goodbye and God bless.